This is On the Air with John Melly, a compelling interview program featuring today's innovative business leaders. Join us as we explore the creative solutions and unique products and services being developed for today's consumers and how businesses are thriving in today's complex marketplace. Now here's your host, John Melly.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to the program. We're in for a very special treat today. My guest is James Theros, and he is the owner and master instructor and 5th degree black belt of Level 10 Martial Arts College. And James began his training in martial arts at the age of 7 years old, where he took a program offered at his elementary school at the time, and he fell in love with the training. And Master Theros is considered a very generous teacher and holds nothing back when he gives to his students, and he demonstrates a true eagerness to show people how to learn and improve their skills. And his philosophy on being successful is very simple. He believes that we're in life where we want to be, and that if we're not happy with where we are, we have to change and grow to get to where we want to be in life. So Master Theros describes himself as 60% serious and 40% fun. So with that, I think we're in for a great interview. And James, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, John. Nice to be here.
Thanks so much. You had sent over some notes prior to our interview, and there are just way too many awards to list here. We could spend half the program going over that. Instructor certification from Oriental Martial Arts College, the World Black Belt Bureau, 9-time international grand champion in forms and weapons and self-defense. I mean, the list is rather lengthy, so I think we're talking to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Well, I've had a couple of weeks' experience.
Sure. I mentioned that you started taking this as an elementary school program, but kind of expand on that for us, would you?
Sure. Back in, I want to say it was second grade or so, I'm a very small guy, always have been, but at that time, I was really small compared to a lot of the other kids.
Okay.
A lady came to my school and she offered a little program, a little after-school martial arts 6-week course, and I immediately saw that as a solution to my problems. At that time, I had seen Chuck Norris in the movies and Bruce Lee, and I was very infatuated by that. You know, back in those days, you didn't find commercial martial arts school as kind of frequent as you do now.
Right.
It was very difficult to find that kind of training, and when it came to the school, everybody wanted it. So the program was full. I think it was twice. It was 2 times it was full, and I was on a waiting list, and I couldn't get in.
Wow.
And the third time that I applied for it, they told me the same thing, and then they called me back the next day and told me that one young man kind of got scared and dropped out at the last minute, which allowed me into the program. And the rest, as they say, is history.
You know, it's always funny. The number of people that I interview, doesn't matter what field they're in or that we're talking about, but it always seems that there's some break, a situation that happens that a door opens up for them to step inside, and then they take the ball and run with it.
Yeah, it was very fortunate. It completely changed my life. I'd be a completely different person and a completely different place if it weren't for the martial arts these days.
Sure. Describe for us the type of folks that come to your school.
Obviously, it's a variety, but primarily we deal with families. We have a lot of professional folks that come to visit us, and they're looking for, you know, that strong male role model that can really instill values and life skills into their children that
Right.
they're trying to get across. I don't know if you have kids, but as you and I know, by being a child, we don't listen to our parents. We don't think our parents really know what they're talking about until we're a little older and we've gone through a few things.
Yeah.
And so we need somebody else who's kind of a third-party edifier is the term that I like to use for it.
Okay.
To come in and teach our kids the things that we're trying to get across to them, but that might actually get through to the kids.
In a way that their parents can't get through.
Absolutely, and it's the same thing that the mom and dad have been saying for years, but somehow when this cool guy in a martial arts uniform says it, it gets through.
Right. Maybe it's the different atmosphere or the third-party validation, so to speak. Well, the edifier, is that the word that you used?
Yes, third-party edifier. That is my position as the master instructor in our school. Of course, we teach martial arts like everybody thinks about it, but I don't even like to tell. When somebody asks me, what do you do for a living? You know, a lot of people, when they hear the term martial arts, and if I tell them that I'm a martial arts instructor, they get an image in their mind that I'm teaching, you know, how to fight and how to grab somebody and ground and pound them into submission, and
Right.
and that's just not what I do. You know,
Okay.
I teach wholesome life skills, and it goes way beyond anything that just the physical martial arts is all about.
Talk to me about those life skills that you're imparting to your students, because I'm hearing that this is a growing trend, or maybe it's something that's been going on in the martial arts world. I'm not in that world. I've never taken a martial arts course. So I think a lot of people have that conception of a martial arts studio. The fact that it might hold some folks back because they're afraid to get hurt, or stuff like that. But we need to take a quick break, but we will be right back after this.
This is On the Air with John Melly.
Well, welcome back. I'm speaking with James Theros, the school owner and master instructor of the Level 10 Martial Arts College. I'm hoping that you could probably expand a little on those other skills that you talk about.
Absolutely. You mentioned a trend a few moments ago, and actually the martial arts have always been kind of delineated by different types of schools. So actually the word martial arts is very similar to the term fast food.
Okay.
And in fast food you have hamburgers, for instance, but Burger King and McDonald's both cook them differently,
Right.
and so you get a different product, even though they may both be hamburgers. And even Taco Bell, which has nothing to do with hamburgers, is still considered a fast food. So in the martial arts, you have what are called sports-oriented schools, where they're going to be teaching primarily training to effect the end of going to win trophies. And of course, we have that element in our school, but that's not the only reason we exist.
Right.
And then you have the other side of it. You have an adult hardcore self-defense school, which might strictly abandon all of the etiquette and respect and things, and they'd be strictly focusing on self-defense techniques that work on the street and nothing more.
Okay.
And so that's another type of martial arts school that's out there. And then you've got more like what we are. It's more of a character development and life skills center that teaches martial arts in the traditional sense of it. I mean, if you think of the Karate Kid movie back in, I believe it was 1984 when that came out,
Right.
that's kind of what we are as a school. It's very similar to that, and a lot of parents are looking for that Mr. Miyagi for their child. And
Okay.
if you remember the movie, Daniel was being taught without realizing he was being taught. And he was basically given one chore after another, and he was painting the instructor's fence, and he was painting the house, and sanding and waxing cars and washing cars. And he came back to Mr. Miyagi's house one day and saw another letter, and you could see the disgust on Daniel's face, and he kind of threw the stuff down and was so upset. But he did the work anyway, and then one last time. And then Mr. Miyagi came home, and he confronted Mr. Miyagi with, what is this I'm doing for you? I'm your slave, and I'm doing all these things for you, and you're not teaching me martial arts. And then you see Mr. Miyagi suddenly go from this calm, cool, collected guy to this very serious martial arts instructor. And he doesn't accept any talk back from Daniel and tells him just to shut up and starts throwing punches and kicks at him and tells him to show him wax on and wax off and show him sand the floor and show him how to paint the fence. And suddenly Daniel has a realization that all along he's been being taught how to defend himself, but at the same time being taught the value of hard work and effort and earning. And it suddenly becomes apparent to Daniel what's going on. And then, of course, the other instructor, who's the more of the militant guy, teaching his students no mercy and mercy's for the weak, and it's all about the win and the victory. And,
Right.
and that's kind of what the difference between a sports-oriented school or a militaristic type of school where they're teaching the hardcore self-defense versus the character development side of things. And if you remember the end of the movie, you couldn't help but your heart go out to Daniel and Mr. Miyagi because they stayed on the right path and did the right things and didn't succumb to the dark side, if you will, like
Sure.
Star Wars.
Right, right. So how did you choose that path?
Well, because that's what was given to me. That's how my path was. I was always taught very valid, very usable martial arts, and I was able to use it to defend myself. Now, fortunately, once I learned the martial arts, the amount of times I had to use any self-defense became very, very few in between. I learned how to become a better person, first of all. I started realizing that half of the problem was me.
Okay, how so? Okay, expand on that a little bit.
Well, I didn't care about other people's feelings. I didn't think about when I was going to say something, how it would be perceived by the other person.
Okay.
And so those types of things, I guess it would come down to a word that we use in our classes a lot, which was respect. And, respecting how the other person felt. And we use a definition in our school that respect is treating others the way you would want to be treated. So when I realized that, I started treating other people differently because I would always weigh it against, would I want that person to treat me this way or to say those things to me?
Right.
And it completely changed the way I dealt with other people. And so obviously I made more friends and fewer enemies.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. So you're working with families and looking to impart certain values of respect. And what other values are you imparting to your students?
We are imparting many different values, but there's three core ones that we focus on above and beyond everything else.
Okay.
And those are respect, focus, and self-discipline. Those are the most important things. And if we can impart those life skills to any child, that child is going to be great, or she's going to be great in anything that they put their mind to or put their hand to. Obviously, respect. If you don't respect yourself, you can't respect others. And if you can't respect others, you're not going to work well in a team. Well, good luck getting a job and a decent paying salary for that, or good luck opening your own business. If you don't have people skills, how are you going to conduct business with the public? How are you going to hire people? How are you going to train them? How are you going to do anything?
Right.
You've got to have respect. Then you've got to have focus. You've got to learn how to do what we call in our school the 3 rules of focus. You've got to learn to focus your eyes. In our school, that might mean keeping your eyes on the person who's talking to you.
Right.
I don't know, John, if you realize that experts claim that if you make eye contact when somebody's speaking with you, that you're going to hear and retain 90% more than if you weren't making eye contact.
I had not heard that. No.
Do you remember growing up, did your parents ever say, John, look at me when I'm talking to you?
Oh, sure.
Obviously, the first reason is going to be respect, but the second reason is they knew intrinsically
Sure.
that if you didn't look at them, you were not going to hear what they were giving you, and then when they left, whatever you were supposed to do was not going to get done.
It's a sign of paying attention, I guess is what it is.
That's right.
And
So
the eyes are
that's
the window
first
to the
rule.
soul.
Yes, sir. You better believe it.
Okay.
The second rule of focus being focusing with your mind. And obviously, if you think about what you're doing when you're doing it, you're going to be better at it. If you're riding a bicycle, but you're thinking about how pretty that girl across the street is, we've all seen what's going to happen. We may have I know I've had that happen a couple of times and
Sure.
had a couple of accidents.
Yep.
So you've got to think about what you're doing right here and right now. If a child's in school and a child's focused on recess or they're focused on lunch versus what's going on right there in front of them, obviously they're going to suffer in their grades. If you just bought a brand new car or a brand new motorcycle or something and you're at work, the chances are you're going to be focused on getting to that car, getting to that motorcycle after work. And you're not going to be focused on the job at hand, which is going to affect your performance, and that may affect whether you not have a job or not, especially in the current economy.
Sure.
Yeah, and then the third one is focusing your body, and that means basically if you're supposed to be there, be there. If you're supposed to be sitting at your desk at school, you're supposed to be sitting up tall and straight, and if you're supposed to be standing someplace in a formation, for instance, you're standing there at your absolute best posture because a positive posture gives you positive energy. If you're slouching, you're going to be negative and you're going to be tired and lethargic. So those 3 things together supercharge a person.
I'm fascinated with what you said, and what you have spoken about has triggered a few questions in my head. But we need to take a quick break, but we will be right back after this.
This is On the Air with John Melly.
Well, welcome back. I'm speaking with James Theros, the school owner and master instructor of the Level 10 Martial Arts College. What you have spoken about has triggered a few questions in my head, but I want to go to the posture focus first and then step back a moment to the mental focus. Do you actually give examples in your class about how posture can affect your physical focus?
Certainly. There are several postures that we use in our class specifically for that reason. And one of them is coming to attention. It's the word martial, by the way. I'm certain you've heard of this, but M-A-R-T-I-A-L means military or war.
Sure.
It's like martial law. So martial arts basically means military arts. And so a lot of the things that we do in the martial arts are based upon military positions and postures. So
Sure.
there are what's called the attention position. We have the exact same thing in the martial arts, which is snapping to attention. And if you've ever seen a military movie of any kind, you've seen it. And then they have what's called parade rest. We don't
Sure.
use parade rest as much as they do, but we have something called ready position, which is essentially the same posture, except the hands are not held behind the back, they're held in front of the body.
Right.
And the positive posture really perks up a person's thought processes. So when a person has a proper thought process, they have confidence. If they're thinking negative and their posture is negative, they're inviting themselves as a target. It could be the schoolyard bully who's looking to pick on somebody, looking for the least threatening individual to bother that day, and it becomes maybe your son or your daughter.
Right.
And because their posture was not correct, they invited this bully to pick on them. So we try to teach students how to carry themselves assertively, but of course not going overboard and carrying themselves with arrogance. There is a fine line.
Sure. You know, it's funny that you say this. There are a couple of things that come to my mind while you talk about it. My wife has excellent posture. And she came home the other day and she told me that a coworker of hers kind of fessed up to her that during that person's job interview process, my wife was on the search committee for the position being filled. And the woman who got the position said to her, you know, it's funny, I was a little intimidated by you in the interview. My wife said to her, well, why was that? And she said, because you have such great posture.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? And she's not an intimidating person. She's a very kind person, but she does. She has excellent posture. And so she said, geez, I didn't even really know that. That's a fascinating thing. The other thing that I was reminded of is I was not in martial arts, but I was in music, and I was in a marching band all through high school and college. And we did similar things. We had parade rest and attention and all that. And we would actually, in college, the director would actually go through a whole, like almost a snap count of what your posture should be. You know, feet together, stomach in, chest out, shoulders back, chin up. And then the final line was eyes you were to carry your eyes with pride.
Well, that sounds like a martial arts class to me.
Yeah.
Very similar.
So, I mean, as soon as you started talking about it, it was one of those things. And while we were going through, it was a lot of hard work. But I have to tell you, it's one of the most fond memories I have of college because it was a bonding experience and you were doing a lot of fun things. But this is certainly something that it's fascinating to learn. The other question that I wanted to ask about was you were talking about being present in your space, in your body, and we're talking about being in class and thinking about recess and not paying attention to what the teachers were talking about in the class. And what came to my mind was I think children today have a lot more distractions than when you and I were in school.
Yes.
I mean, with text messaging and cell phones and iPods and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
So how are you seeing that at Level 10 Martial Arts College, and what are you doing to address that?
Our job is to take a student and, first of all, get them to understand the benefits of focusing. If I can get a child to understand the benefit of why he would want to focus, not making him do it. See, when you make somebody do it, that's different than them wanting to do it. That's the difference of authority versus influence. And we try to be very influential versus authoritative. Completely takes them by surprise because that's not what they expected to have happen. And suddenly they've got a guy in me who's a supporter instead of just another authority figure in their life. And so I try to get them to view an authority figure as a good person, as a helper, as an assistant to helping them on the road to success versus somebody who's just trying to make them do something.
Right.
And so that's where the third-party edification comes in. And then I will explain to them why their parents took away their Game Boy or why their parents grounded them or told them they couldn't hang out with Joe Blow, who's down the street, who seems to be getting them in trouble. And then when they start realizing that the parents have the child's best interest at heart, so now mom and dad look like the heroes, and Joey really wants to get praise from them, and he wants to get praise from me, and he wants to get praise from his instructor. We will actually be looking out for Joey, and during every class for the smallest thing that we can tell him he did well on. And he's going to want to know, how can I get more of that praise instead of getting the negative attention? And so he'll start to make changes.
That's got to be really rewarding when you see that sense of relief wash over a kid.
Very much so. It is what I live for. It's such a rewarding experience to see that happen. And when you do it with one child, it doesn't matter if it's one child or 50 children, just one child per year. If I can do that with it, just makes what I do so worthwhile.
That's terrific.
You're listening to On the Air with John Melly.
Well, welcome back. I'm speaking with James Theros, the school owner and master instructor of the Level 10 Martial Arts College. It almost sounds like you're a resource for the families that come to Level 10 Martial Arts College. The kids are there to learn martial arts and the life skills, but it almost sounds like you're building a community there where you're an advisor for these kids.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the best way it's ever been described. We are a resource. We're a resource for the families who'd come to train with us, but we're also a resource for our community in general. We do a lot of community outreach. We're doing a fundraiser for Riley's Children's Hospital.
Right.
And so what a better way to give back to the community than to help the community's children personally, and then to help those who maybe cannot help themselves by doing some fundraisers for those guys. You know, a lot of times a parent will come to our school and they'll be looking at it as an extracurricular activity or a hobby or a sport like soccer that has a season.
Yep.
And that's where they miss the point, is we're not like soccer. We're not like hockey, or we're not like a gymnastics program or something. And it is not supposed to be viewed as an extracurricular activity. This is a life skills development center. This is a place of higher education, and there's a lot of etiquette. Martial arts begins and ends with respect.
You've sort of answered it before I asked the question, but how do you measure what they're being taught outside of the college? You know, how do you measure what they're doing in their day-to-day activities in school, at home, and in the community?
One of the things that we do for self-discipline training, for instance, in our schools, we have something called a Black Belt Excellence Worksheet. And this is geared towards students who are ages 4 to 14. Ages 15 and above are able to do these things, but those of the younger age, this is part of their rank promotion. So if they don't do this, then they will not promote to their next rank. So there's a built-in kind of carrot out in front of them. That's the whole school, and the whole martial arts system is based on these belts, because the belts are our goal-setting process.
Okay.
So we have what's called long-term goals. That's our black belt. And then we have our short-term or intermediate goals, which would be our next color belt. And then we have our shortest-term goals, or the midterm goals, which would be our striping system, which kind of tells a student whether they're on track or not. When they fill out this Black Belt Excellence Worksheet, they're doing something away from the school that they cannot do under our guidance. They have to be doing it at home, and parents are encouraged to be helping with their kids. And it's not something that takes hours. It takes a few minutes a week.
Okay.
So when they bring the sheet back in, first of all, you can see them glowing from ear to ear because they're so excited they're about to get a little piece of electrical tape on their belt.
Okay.
To you and me, that may not sound like much. But to them, it means that they're taking one more step to their next belt. So they've got to get this Black Belt Excellence worksheet filled out, and then they've got to bring it to either their midterm exam or their final promotion exam and hand it to the instructor. And when they hand it to the instructor, they get that stripe around their belt, and that starts to build their confidence to want to do more of those kind of things. And what makes life worth living is pursuing goals, pursuing dreams. And so in the martial arts, when the student begins, our goal for that student, and we're looking for the right student who's going to share that goal with us, is black belt. That's
Right.
not the end, that's the beginning. But it's a great beginning. It's equivalent to like graduating high school. When you get your first degree black belt, that's equivalent of being a senior and graduating as a senior in high school. And then you have a choice of either going into the workforce, going into the military, or going into more school and getting you maybe your PhD or your master's degree. And that's where the second and third and fourth and fifth degrees and so on and so forth, that's where they come from. So having a compelling goal like a black belt is so powerful, and it can really transform a child. It makes a child completely change into something that you would never expect because they're in pursuit of something greater than themselves and bigger than themselves. And they see people who are just like them. It's one thing to look at a TV and look at one of the fashion models and think, yeah, that'd be nice to look like that. And then looking at our own physiques and saying, yeah, but it's never going to happen for me. You know, or looking at Michael Jordan and then getting these aspirations to go out and play basketball and realizing, well, you know, Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, and not everybody can be that great at basketball.
Right.
But then you get into the martial arts and you realize there's somebody who looks like you do. Maybe their body shape is the same as yours. Maybe they're the same age as you might. And you see somebody else on those ends of the spectrum achieve their black belt, and you realize, wow, this person did it, so maybe I have a shot at it. And
Right.
I just cannot tell you the power in seeing that happen. It changes lives. You're never going to be the same again once you achieve your black belt. You just can't be. You can never unstretch your thinking to the way it's been stretched to the possibilities of what you can do as a human being in physical potential or mental potential.
I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You've got a kid coming in. He probably has been playing a lot of video games and things of that nature and gets distracted with his text messaging and all that. You ever have kids come in there and you open them up to a whole new world, and before you know it, mom and dad come to you and say, he's not sitting in front of that TV or the computer all the time?
Happens all the time. It happens all the time. You know, I have to say that if I were a 7-year-old kid and I had the technology we have today, I probably would never want to leave the house either. I mean, there's so much to offer. My goal is to take a child, especially a child who has little or no belief in themselves and little or no confidence in themselves, and bring them up to the level where they're finally maybe willing to try out for the football team for the first time in their lives because they've been afraid to do it for the past 3 to 4 years. They didn't have the self-esteem to even try out, worried about if I did get selected, I might be the guy that's just getting tackled all the time. Or maybe what if I try and they say no? So that's the kind of person I'm looking for. I'm looking for the guy who's looking to make a change in his life.
Right.
And whether that be a child or an adult, I'm looking for both.
Well, you know what? I want to talk a little bit more about who your ideal clients and customers are and who they aren't. But first, we've been into this conversation for a while, and I have neglected that we need to take a quick break, but we will be right back after this.
This is On the Air with John Melly.
Bring out the best in your child at Level 10 Martial Arts, where they'll learn character development, self-confidence, leadership development, physical fitness, self-defense, and a whole lot more.
Level 10 Martial Arts is an excellent place. The instructors are all dedicated to teach these kids, teaching them core values, respect, discipline.
A lot of focus, a lot of confidence in himself.
Space is limited, so call 782-8000 to enroll today. That's 782-8000.
Let us help you become a leader.
This is On the Air with John Melly.
Well, welcome back. My guest today is James Theros, and we are talking about martial arts and character development. And James is the owner and president of Level 10 Martial Arts College. And James, before we took a break, you were talking about who you'd love to come to your martial arts college and who you're not looking for. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. The person that I'm not looking for, I like to start with that. I'm not looking for somebody, again, that's coming to us looking for a replacement activity until soccer begins. I'm looking for somebody who wants to make a positive change and a long, life-lasting change and get passionate about something that I'm passionate about. I'm looking for that next black belt. I'm looking for that next guy who really wants to make an impact, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of those around them. People who are mostly concerned with pricing. If somebody's calling me and the only thing they care about is how much my classes cost,
Right.
and that's the only thing that matters to them, I'm probably not going to be the right school for them. Because what kind of value can you put on confidence for your child? What kind of value can you put on improved grades and improved social skills and abilities that you wouldn't have otherwise?
No.
If you're going to try to put a price on that, all I have to say is good luck. You definitely will get what you pay for in a martial arts school, just like you will get what you pay for in an automobile or anything else. Why chance it? Why take the chance and take the risk just because you want to save a few dollars?
Obviously, you're very passionate about what you're doing with your students. I can hear it in your voice, and you're providing them a good experience. And obviously, the clients of your martial arts college value that.
Yes, couldn't have said it better.
Speaking of which, we need to take a quick break, but I want to talk to you about what opportunities you may have for our listeners. But we'll be right back after this.
This is On the Air with John Melly.
Welcome back. We are speaking with James Theros. He is the school owner and master instructor of Level 10 Martial Arts College, and we're speaking about martial arts and character development and respect and focus and discipline, self-discipline. And we were just talking about, the opportunities and what opportunities you have and what opportunities are worth to you. And James, I was wondering if you had any special opportunities for our listeners.
We do. And I want to preface that by saying that we would like to give everybody an opportunity. The opportunity does come with a little bit of a catch, and that catch is that you've got to be the right person and the right fit for our school before we'll ever consider putting your son or your daughter into our school on a longer-term agreement. We've got to make sure that you're a right fit for our school, and we've got to make sure, even more so, that we're the right fit for your family. So we've put out a very generous introductory offer, and, you're not going to really know if you enjoy something by just watching it on TV. You might get an idea, but it's a whole different ballgame when you actually step out there and do that activity, whatever that activity is. So martial arts is no different. The listeners may come to our school and they may find that their son was very excited about it and wanted to do martial arts, really was gung-ho about it, and then they take their first class and realize it's not what they thought it was going to be because we're not teaching them how to flip off of a wall and 3 spins in the air before they land on their feet, and that they've actually got to stand feet together and bow to their instructor and show respect and say sir and ma'am instead of just yeah and uh-huh. And some students, that may not be their gig.
Right.
On the other hand, you may have a child who's struggling with his discipline or struggling with his respect, and parents are kind of at their wits' end as to what to do. They're considering military school, or they're considering putting a straitjacket on him and hiding him in a closet for the next month. I don't know. They're just not sure what to do. So they bring their child to us with an opportunity for the child to try this. And a lot of times, if that happens, we'll find that the child actually loves what we're doing. He comes in a little bit cold shoulder because mom and dad's making him do it, but then he realizes that the instructors are not going to be the bad karate guy. They're going to be Mr. Miyagi, and they're going to warm up to them and invite them in and make them feel welcome and that they've got a place and a special identity. And
Right.
a lot of those students will warm up and really enjoy the classes. So we want to find out which kind of a child we've got
Right.
in our midst, or an adult for that matter.
Okay.
And on the top of that, we want to find out the kind of involvement the parents are going to give. We want parents to be involved.
Okay.
We want parents to be thinking about helping their children raise their standards and do more for themselves and become more. So we put together a very attractive offer. We call it our introductory special. Ours is 2 weeks for $29.99. So that means for 2 weeks, your child will be able to sample the classes. The first class is going to be a private lesson with our program director, who in most cases is my wife, Debbie.
Okay.
And she's a fantastic wife, and she's a fantastic mother, really knows how to get through to kids and to get them to learn things. I wish I had an hour to talk about her teaching style. It is so unique.
Okay.
And so she really is great at that. And she's usually the one that teaches our introductory lessons.
Okay.
The first one's going to be a private lesson where we're really going to take Joey into the classroom and teach him all the core basics he's going to need to know before he ever steps out on the floor, so that when he gets out on the floor in an actual class, he's not lost. We like to give their first class to be a private lesson, and then we're going to put them in the actual group lesson that they would be coming to if they were full-time students. And when they come out to the group lesson, they're going to be assigned a leadership team student, which is another student in our class, but they're there strictly to help out with that new child's experience and to be there next to them when they're throwing their front snap kick or they're doing their low block or they're running through their form, their pattern, and which direction to turn, or anything else that we're going to be doing, and standing next to that child and really helping him build his confidence and build his belief in himself. And we'll find out within those first 2 to 3 classes whether or not this is something for Joey or whether this is something for the parents.
Right.
And we're going to know. So the parents are not obligated, we're not obligated, and it's just an opportunity for them to test our school out and for us to test them out as potential candidates for our school.
And for $29.95, right?
$29.99, and that gets
95.
them 2 weeks of training, and we also include an official Level 10 martial arts uniform, which has a value of $40. So if the student were to buy a second uniform, that's what they would pay for it.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yes.
This has been a terrific conversation, and what I want to know is how do our listeners get in touch with you?
Well, one of a couple of ways. Number one is they could stop by the school. You could find the address from our website. You could go to the website and actually register for an introductory lesson right there online, or
Okay.
simply call the school. Call us at area code 317-782-8000 and let them know you heard us on this program. And
What was that number again, James?
that was area code 317-782-8000.
All right, terrific. Before we wrap up, I have one question that I ask everybody, and that is, in preparation for today's interview, you probably had some form of preparation, a mental preparation, some form of internal dialogue, thinking about what it is that you wanted to say. And I found frequently that internal dialogue, if you will, is the core message that the person being interviewed wants to get across. And I was wondering if that's the case for you. What was your internal dialogue? And here's your opportunity to share that.
John, my internal dialogue was just making sure that I had delineated what we do in the martial arts. You know, everything is not the same. Just because you see the word karate or just because you see the word martial arts, that all schools are not equal. And that was probably the main thing on my mind, is how do we delineate between those types of schools.
Right.
And so obviously the main thing that we are focused on at Level 10 Martial Arts is personal and character development and leadership skills and success mentality. Really taking a student and supercharging that student so that their entire life is better, not just them being able to defend themselves, although that is certainly going to happen at our school.
Sure. James, this has been fascinating. This has been a terrific conversation. I know you're busy, you're running a business, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. And to our listeners, I just think it's a terrific opportunity. And if they have the opportunity, like you have offered to them, that I think they'd be wise to take you up on it if it's something that is for them and for their children.
You know, John, I have one more thought on that.
Sure.
And as I was thinking as you were talking there, and then you just kind of hit the nail on the head right there. Opportunity. Success happens when opportunity meets preparation.
Correct.
So if anybody's listening to this interview and they are prepared to make a change in their lives or the lives of their loved ones, here's the opportunity. Are you ready to take it? That's what it all comes down to. If you miss the opportunity and the opportunity's gone, it may never come back again.
There you go. That's a great way to wrap it up, and we do have to go, so I want to just thank you again, and I want to thank everybody for listening. Take care.
You've been listening to On the Air with John Melly. For more information on this program, please refer to the contact information that accompanied this audio CD.